welcome back to another episode of the Hybrid Zone. Today we've got a very special guest. Um, Not only he has been part of the Hyrox world for many years, but Sean Madden, not being just a Hyrox pro athlete and a coach and a fierce competitor in the Hyrox World Championships. We've seen amazing numbers through the years, and the testimony obviously through his profile and pages. Sean, you not just competed at the highest levels, but also coached others to reach their peak performance in their rapidly growing sport. We're excited to dive into your journey, training insights, and what it takes to excel in the Hyrox. Welcome, Sean Madden. I'm really happy to have you.
Hey, you all right? Thank you for having me. What an incredible introduction. I've got to live up to it now. So make sure. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, pleasure to have you, Sean. And I mean, Sean, let us know, how did you get started with Hyrox and what really drew you to the sport? We know that it's a very niche sport and it's not very well known like other hybrid sports we know. So perhaps you could walk us down your line first.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, in the grand schemes of all sport, yeah, it's quite new on the scene. I think it's been around 2017, 18. Started in Germany, but I came across it in towards the tail end of 2021. Someone in the marketing team, obviously in the UK, was doing well on their Instagram algorithms because it just kept popping up, videos and pictures of people competing, and where I was at the time in my own career and my own training. I played rugby for 10 years. I had stopped just because I didn't want to have cauliflower ears and I wanted to have a nose that was straight. So I was looking for something competitive. I've always been competitive, and I wanted a purpose to my training. I wasn't interested in powerlifting or becoming a bodybuilder. I've always been athletic. I've always liked sports. So yeah, it came across. I watched a few videos and I thought, why not? It was coming to my home city of Manchester. So I think I saw the advertisement for it around October time in 2021. And I think it was coming to Manchester in January 2022. And it was the first time the sport had hit the UK that year. I think they'd already done one event in London beforehand, which had done okay. And then they were expanding it to Manchester. So I signed up. Doing a mixed doubles with another coach who I worked with. Didn't go straight into the deep end of the solo yet. Kind of had no idea. Obviously, I'd done some research into the sport, done some training. But yeah, January 2022 was my first race, and it was incredible. As I said, I was always looking for that competitive edge. But the atmosphere itself in the room, everyone was supportive. Even you start in like a starting pen and there's like a tunnel. It's called the Red Bull Tunnel, and everyone's kind of like chatting. It was so new then, especially in the UK. Everyone was like chatting to each other in the tunnel. Yeah, it was a great experience. So supportive, and I never really. Obviously, I played rugby, and obviously you play as a team and you support each other, but I've never really witnessed that in a competitive event before. So yeah, it was magical, and that was kind of what got that race and just kick-started from there. Never looked back.
Echoing that, I think it's one of the sports that generally gets you hooked. You know, as you mentioned, people are not just supportive, they're very vibrant, the energy is amazing. But perhaps if we could take it a step back for our audience, if they're slightly ignorant on what Hyrox really is. So perhaps if you could break it down into the simplest form there is.
Okay, simplest form, it's a fitness race at the end of the day. It's a start and a finish. So once you start, there's only one way you're going. Yeah, it's a timed event, so everyone has like a time chip that they're wearing. There is 8 stations, and in between each station, you have to do a 1 kilometer run, and that race format never changes. The only changes are between the weight differences between men and women, and whether you're doing a singles or doubles and relay. Okay, so the format is always the same: 1 kilometer run, 8 stations. I'll briefly go through the 8 stations. So you do your first run, then you've got a 1,000 meter ski erg. Second run, then you've got a sled push of 50 meters. Your third run, then you're into a sled pull of 50 meters. Then you're onto your fourth run. Trying to keep track now. Once you've done your fourth run, you're then into 80 meters of burpee broad jumps. Then you're onto your fifth run, and it's a 1,000-meter row or rowing. Sixth run, you're then into a farmer's carry, which is 200 meters. Seventh row, you're then into a 100-meter sandbag walking lunges. And then your eighth run, your final run, and then you're into the wall ball station, which is 100 reps for the men and 75 reps for the women, and mixed doubles is 100. And then you literally just, the wall ball station, let's say the wall ball station is here, and then 10 meters ahead is the finish line. You just dash across.
That's amazing. And
So,
do you have a favorite station, Sean?
when I first started, I would say the farmer's carry. It should be the quickest one, and generally it's the quickest one for anyone competing. But actually, my favorite now, just because how I've progressed, is wall balls, which is crazy because that's the last station, and I've done. You've been working for so long, but
yeah.
I think the way they design the events, the atmosphere is insane in that wall ball station. You got the spectators, the judge, all the competitors with you, and you know that your race is done in, I don't know, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, X amount of time, and then you're done, you're dusted. So that's where your adrenaline is so high, and I love that feeling. The love-hate relationship, but I love it more than I hate it.
But no, you're right. I think the wall balls where the audience are mainly focusing on, seeing you do those wall balls and cross your finish line. So now you're right about how you're actually really high and quite huge amount of adrenaline where you want to finish and just dash to the finish line. Not the greatest photos on that finish line, I'll tell you that. It's just the 10 meters, there wasn't enough time for me to smile. I still remember having this ugly photo at the end compared to triathlons where I'm actually taking my time to cross the whole finish line and enjoy myself. But overall, as you mentioned, it's a very different realm, or the environment of how things are very, very and I think at the same time, Sean, I think training is different. So training hybrid is definitely not an easy task because you've put X amount of hours just doing endurance. At the same time as well, you have to focus on strength. I mainly struggled very much on having to maintain my muscle mass as I do endurance. So if maybe some tips and tricks from your end, or you've been in the sport for quite a while, how does like a general look, how does training look like, and how does it differ from strength training and endurance independently?
Well, that can be a difficult one. I mean, I approach the sport like any other sport. Maybe even triathlons and triathletes will have like phases of training, like periodization of training, which basically a simple way of putting it is just blocks of training, and you progress through them up until your race day, throughout a season. So depending on the phase that you're in, for example, I train consistently pretty much 6 days a week throughout my whole, right up until the race day, and constantly throughout the season. But depending on the phase that I'm in, depends on the sort of training I'm doing. So for the past, I'll just take so for the past 6 to 8 weeks, I've been in a big strength block of training. So I've been doing this sport specific stuff related to Hyrox because I'm so far out from the actual race. There's no real reason to focus on it. So I've just been trying to build up my strength, and that's so in a typical week in that period, I've been doing strength sessions maybe 4 times a week, like a split between lower and upper, and then the other sessions would be some easy runs and maybe just one intense high intensity session in that strength phase. Now that I'm 11 weeks out from my competition, I'm in my intensification. So my strength has now dropped off. I've done all that work. I've built the foundations. I've strengthened up my ligaments and my tendons so that I can withstand the intensity. So now my week now looks at my running volumes massively increased. So I'm doing about 3 to 4 runs a week on top of some like endurance, building muscular endurance work. So I might do 1, maybe 2 strength sessions a week, and the rest is muscular endurance and running work. And then that will continue now for the next 11 weeks, about 6 to 8 weeks. And then 4 weeks out from race generally is my peak phase. So strength will dip down even more so, and it's literally just working on the station work, the race strategy, and just keeping the intensity really high, and also being careful of not to peak too soon. It can happen quite a lot. I don't know if that answers your question or makes it even more complicated, but yeah, it differs on the phase that you're in. So yeah, on how much you spend on the certain style of training.
I think
The
pretty much.
running is the running is I'm always running though. My running never stops.
So you speaking of running, I mean, is it possible like now, I'm not a big fan of running, but at the end of the day you do the run. Is it possible to replace it with any type of endurance and then you call it a day? Is that something that we could do, Sean, from your experiences of coaching?
Yes, you can. I mean, for the purpose of this sport, running it's 50% of the race, so running is massive. However, you can you can still build a lot of aerobic endurance work and aerobic base by doing other pieces of cardio. So sitting on a bike or a watt bike, like let's say you had a 60-minute run. Okay, you can substitute that out for a 60-minute bike. You're still working on your aerobic base. You're just minusing the intensity and the muscular damage that you'll do to your joints that is actually needed because when you're racing, you're running on hard concrete most of the time. And it's the same with that. You could do instead of doing a 30-minute run, you could sit on a rowing machine for 30 minutes at a low heart rate. You're still working on your aerobic base. However, that's probably obviously going to benefit you more when it comes to station 5 and the ski erg as well. But so that's a hard slog to sit on a ski erg for
Yeah.
anything longer than 10 minutes.
So
So yeah, you can substitute. Yeah.
so we can, and how often can we do a demo? Not really a demo race, but like how often do we do bricks of, let's say, wall balls and then a run and then, something that is consecutive. So anything that could be half of Hyrox or let's say a full Hyrox and half into, let's say, half repetitions. Is that something that we do quite often? Because when I got to train for Hyrox and not having, a background and just doing the research, I was like, okay, it looks like I have to do a bit of demo just to know how I feel and see how my heart rate would peak. So, ramping up to the race, how often would you do demo races and repetitions of brick sessions, etc.?
So yeah, as we get closer to the race, I like for example now, generally you would do those big intense sessions, maybe once or twice a week. Ideally, I mean in Europe, like the races either fall on a Saturday or a Sunday. So my biggest sessions, I generally will race on a Saturday. So my biggest sessions of the week will be on a Saturday, and those will consist of high intensity work, sort of like quarter simulations or half simulation. It'll never be a full simulation, and it's not necessarily doing a quarter as in you're doing the first quarter of the race or you're doing the last half of the race. It's just simulating. It's more simulating the training, the feeling, and simulating the intensity, more so actually simulating the actual race. Funnily enough, I've never actually done a full. This is my full season. I've never actually done a full simulation. I've never done a sim. It's I see it a lot, and it's great for people coming into the sport. Like you said, if you've never experienced it before, it's good because you get to learn how to use the equipment, especially if you're new to it, and how your body will react to that sort of intensity. But yeah, mainly once or twice a week, high intensity, working on the stations, and at weekends really. Just and the weekends is to simulate because you're going to compete generally at a weekend.
Yeah. And by far, what was your favorite race now that we've spoken about a few that you've competed in? I've seen a few pictures of especially the Berlin one. That was the pictures of bomb, they're fire, especially with the background and the aircraft. So was it your favorite one, or do you have one that is actually memorable? Was it your first? Was your first the memorable one, or did you funk it?
Berlin was special. I think
Yeah.
obviously the venue helped a lot with that, and it was my PB in the pro category, my PB race. But then it's not always about which. I'm trying to think which one I just thoroughly enjoyed and never I think I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go Copenhagen last year. Okay, it's tough between Copenhagen and Berlin. Copenhagen was my last open race, so it wasn't the pro division; it was in the open. Um, I got a PB there. It was a good venue. I liked the course. Everything sort of fell into place. And so to get that feeling after 2 years or so of competing was amazing. So I'll go with Copenhagen. Close second is Berlin. Very close second.
That was very tough. Sean, when did you decide to move from the open race to pro competing? Because I think it's open for anyone to pro compete, right? So when did you decide
Yeah.
it's about time that I, go there full throttle as a pro athlete?
Yeah, no difference. I mean, just depends on which ticket you want to pay for at the end of the day. So I did my first season. I did a mixed doubles and I did a solo open. And then that was the end of the UK season. It hadn't been UK long. And then I went into the next season and I actually my second season. So I myself got myself a coach because in sport was so new. So even with my own expertise, I, I needed to be in the sport already, and there weren't many around back then. In Birmingham, London. This is the tail end of 2022. I did Birmingham, London. I did those races, and I booked Manchester, my home city again, but I booked that as a pro race. And I said to my coach, oh, I want to get to the World Championships. Now, if you qualify for the World Championships, regardless if you're in open or pro, you have to race with pro weights. It's kind of tough. So I'd actually booked Manchester as a pro race, but I hadn't even qualified then. I was just getting ahead of myself and thought, one of these races I'm going to qualify. If I'm going to do it. So I did Manchester, having not, and it was hard. It was a big step up, just in the weights, especially on the sled work. It was a hard race, and then I did Stockholm about a month after that, and that's my qualifying race. So once I got to the World Champ, once I'd done that test race, sort of like a B race, qualified, and I did the World Championships. After the World Champs in my second season, I said, "That's it. I'm doing. I'm going. I've qualified. I've got to the highest point. Well, the highest point that I could have from Open. And I said, no, I want to really invest in this. I really want to dial in. There's lots of improvements to be made. But yeah, so at the end of my second season, I said, I'm going in hard, going in the pro.
John, it sounds
Never
like
look
a
back.
very long journey. Again, I think there is a big myth of, well, this looks like you seem to be sponsored, you seem to have the support, but people don't know that it's a self-investment, and at the end of the day, returns are very low. So if you could tell our audience out there that how has it been since your start of Hyrox, and in terms of self-investment, and in terms of budgeting for Hyrox, is it something that's doable, and is it something that if if you invest in yourself, it's as equivalent as just any other sport in terms of investing and so on? So financially speaking, how would the Hyrox be, and which tier would you rank it as?
I think since it's the sport itself has developed a lot since it started out, like very very quickly in a short period of time compared to other sports. Um, and because of that growth, there has been a lot more investment into the sports from loads of different brands and companies, which has only been good for everyone. As for an investment for myself, yeah, you're right. It's taken a lot of investment for myself. I wouldn't even want to. The way I approach it is that this is my sport now, and I absolutely love it. So when it comes to cost and pricing, yes, it plays a part, and I do think about it, especially when I'm traveling for events. Um, that plays a part when I choose which races to pick. But I've always thought of it. It's an investment in myself, and that's how I always try to remind myself when I'm booking races or I'm paying for this hotel, I'm paying for this flight. At the end of the day, I'm doing this because I have goals, and to get to those goals, you put in what you get out. You invest in yourself, and it depends how much you put in. I know that obviously some people can't afford that, but it just means I've got to work harder in my own coaching business so that I can help myself. I don't know if that answers the question. I've gone on a tangent.
No, it
um,
totally does. It totally does. When you're
yeah.
passionate about it, you put, the time and effort, as well as the money. That's
Mhm,
why we go out and race. Just at the beginning, it's just leisure, but then slowly, as you've said, this is my sport and I represent it. And
mhm.
I think it echoes as well through your coaching business. I think if there is any coach I really want to be associated with, I would love to look up to them from their coaching. So I wouldn't
Yeah,
really go and get coached by a couch potato as much as I would want to be coached by someone who actually plays the sport, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Want to go like, oh, I was ex-Olympian. No, I really want to be coached by a current Olympian because they know the in and outs of the sport, what are the recent updates and so on and so forth. Um, Sean, do you think we're gonna find Hyrox in the Olympics one day?
Oh wow. I have seen. So one of the obviously the co-founders of Hyrox is an ex-Olympian for Germany. I think in the hockey team, going years and years ago. So he's one of the co-founders. I have read articles where he has expressed his desire to get the sport into the Olympics. You sort of the last World Championships in Nice, where they had the mixed relay team, and they had obviously it was nation against nation. So you had the American team, the British team, the Austrian team, competing to see who was the best nation. The Brits came out on top. I think it was Britain, USA, and I want to say Germany. But I'm not too sure on who came third. I don't see why it couldn't be. I mean, there's loads of sports in the Olympics now. I'm sure if you look back from when the Olympics first started, or the modern Olympics that we see it today, um, I'm sure it's expanded in sports wise. So I see definitely as a relay. I could definitely see it. Individual athletes competing to represent. Yeah, it could be done. I don't see
Yeah.
why not.
Likewise, and I really hope that we do see it one day in the Olympics. Now, perhaps again, the Hyrox seem to be a very complicated sport. So, someone, let's say, an ultimate beginner would want to get, if of course, from your coaching experience, have you had any beginners that came with zero background in strength and zero background in running and told you, well, Sean, I really want to take part in the Hyrox? What would you tell them, and what is it that you would advise them to start with? And is it possible or doable for them to get into the sport despite the zero experience and none strength nor endurance?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think the motto is it's a fitness racing for everybody. Anyone who wants to sign up can sign up. There's nothing stopping them. I've seen people all shapes, sizes, different athletic abilities. Yeah, you can rock up on the day. You could rock up with zero training. I'm not going to promise that you'll have a great race and you'll enjoy it. But yeah, you can do it. Anyone can do it. Now, obviously, someone coming into it who actually signs up and wants to do well or have a good race. Yes, there's nothing like. I would obviously coach them from the ground up. I think a big thing I say to all beginners coming into this race is that accept it's a runner sport. I think one of the biggest conversations I have with people is is about running, less so on the strength work. I'd say 80% that I try to nail home to people um, coming in and starting their Hyrox journey or going into the first race is that the running is everything. Running is where you'll make the most time up. Running is where you will improve first over every other station. It's also the easiest one to improve. Yeah, get running, get your runners on.
Yeah.
Um,
The steers on, no, and then I think it's even more challenging when you have to run off, sore legs after,
Mhm,
let's say, some sled pulls and pushes. It's very different. I think one of the main things that really helped me in the race is because a bit of, CrossFit there where we're really on high intensity and we do a lot of hybrid workouts. But how different is it when you go out on fresh legs than it is going from, let's say, a few repetitions of heavy lifting to out and running? And in terms of training, how does it really differ than a normal strength separated endurance session, Sean?
mhm. I mean, fresh legs are great to run on. I wish I had fresh legs for near enough all of the race. Oh yeah, there's a mass. Yeah, it's funny. I'll speak, or I've seen half marathon runners or marathon runners come into Hyrox, and obviously they're very good runners. It's what they excel at, and they can actually run quite quick kilometers or miles at a very low heart rate and at a quick pace. But they come into and they go into Hyrox thinking that, oh yeah, I've got good, and they do have good recovery, better than your average Joe. They get absolutely destroyed once past the sleds. They'll get through the ski erg fine. Once they get through those sleds, yeah, there's a big the lactic acid build up throughout a lot of the station work, but the first experience is that sled push is so high. I mean, I've had a bad race myself where I just couldn't move my legs. I had to walk out of a sled push station instead of running. Um, so yeah, there's a big emphasis on, or there should be a big emphasis on training on tired legs compared. And it's the same. Obviously, I think you mentioned obviously CrossFit. That's another thing that I see CrossFit athletes coming into the sport. Now there's a big mixture on CrossFit athletes. Some actually enjoy running, and actually are really good. But CrossFit is a high intensity sport, a lot of power, a lot of strength, but for a short period of time. So they can work in the highest heart rate threshold for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and absolutely excel. But can they do it for 60 minutes, 90 minutes? Because that's what's required in in Hyrox. So working under fatigue is massive. Exposing your body to that sort of training it is key. There's a time and place for it within your training program. It doesn't mean if you're coming straight into your Hyrox and you've got Hyrox in 12 weeks, you don't just go straight into high intensity fatigue work because you'll be fatigued after 4 weeks of constantly doing that. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Is there a cutoff time? I really can't recall. Do we have cutoff times in Hyrox, Sean? Like, is it a 2 hour, 3 hour?
No. There's no
Oh,
cut-off time. It takes you as long as I've seen people take three
okay.
hours.
No
I've
wonder.
seen
All
people
right,
take
because
yeah.
I still remember the heat starting off around 8 a.m. and then going on and on to the end of the day. So it gives people a good window to, take a break and then get back to it. I've seen
Mm-hmm,
people of different walks of life, handicapped people make it to the High Rocks and actually finishing the race. It's one of the mesmerizing things I've ever seen.
mm-hmm,
And it gives me the spirits of triathlons and CrossFit as well, and any other sport out in the world where you really get to challenge yourself. And I think Hyrox is literally the only sport where you could do it in duels, you could do it in like teams. They come with
mm-hmm,
different options where everyone gets to try. So no, it's very special, and I think now that it's have been heard of and it's slowly
mm-hmm.
ramping up, do you have any special upcoming projects in with the Hyrox, and is there anything that you're planning ahead as the sport is expanding apart from just coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I run training camps in Cyprus. I did my first one this year.
Oh,
For I kind of like take a small group of individuals, 8 to 10, training 7 days a week. But that's kind of a bit of like a hybrid camp because I've had
yeah.
athletes come from other hybrid sports onto that.
Oh, no. Mm.
I also do. I also like to dial in a big thing about any competitive sport is mindset and wellness. At the end of the day, we can't be these machines that are constantly operating at our peak level for 12 months a year. So I do like incredibly what I call beautiful, like this wellness retreat out in Lithuania, which is out in the cold. It's in this it's in one of the national forests. This big like log cabin, that I rent out with another coach that I work with closely. She's a mindset and wellness coach, um, and we run that in. We did it the first time this year, a sort of like a test, see how it went. It was very successful, so we're doing it again in February next year. It's just a few days, kind of getting away from the hustle and bustle of life, of competing life, and just kind of like reconnecting with nature. We do a lot of Wim Hof, like a 3-hour workshop with this amazing guy called Z. He's a practitioner that kind of travels over the world doing it. Takes you out on the ice lake, this lake that's well, we tried to test how deep it was. The ice, you can drive across it; it's that deep. But they cut out a hole in the ice, and that's like 90 seconds of it. The rest is the breathing technique. The sauna master comes along after 3-hour workshop. That's a really interesting experience. It's really hard to describe unless you're there. I've never had a sauna. I've been in a sauna plenty of times, but this is like a 3-hour where there's a ceremony. But yeah, it's kind of like put your phones away, chill, be a community, and nice like shutting off from the world. You come away from it really like rejuvenated. So that's away from my competing side of things.
I think it's quite challenging too, Sean, because you're constantly, having high intensity, and then you go there for three,
Mhm.
3-hour workshops, and then out of nowhere, definitely no signal, and you're just there sitting, not doing anything or not trying to do anything because you're constantly
Mhm.
thinking of what's ahead of you. So no, that's great. I think pretty much we get too occupied that we forget to disconnect, and that's one of the main parts because us as athletes trying to seek out disconnecting inside a gym actually turns out to be the opposite, and then we come out of there stressed and, oh, I wanted to do this but unfortunately I couldn't, chasing numbers, etc. So when it comes to complementing, I think the best thing you've done is a good retreat from off season. That's fundamentally important. Is there a certain place where the audience could find the perhaps sign up for the next retreat coming up?
Yes, they're on my website. I mean, I can drop the link and can share after this,
Yeah.
or just on my Instagram in my link in my bio, you can find the winter one, the wellness, and obviously the summer training one in Cyprus.
Oh, Cyprus as well. Where about in Cyprus?
It is Paphos is where, well, that's the nearest city, but
Right.
it's a little bit further away. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. We went there. I went there in May this year. I'd never been to Cyprus myself.
Okay.
It's so beautiful. Apart from all the training, it is such a beautiful place to be. The beaches. It was one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been to.
It is gorgeous. I think it's the Mediterranean Sea out there. That's yeah.
Yeah.
And now that you've changed weather, does it really matter in terms of training? Do you feel any different having to train in different weather conditions?
Um, no, if anything, I think it's good for the body to expose
Yeah.
themselves to that. I actually really enjoy training in the heat, considering I'm from the UK, and I'm very pale. I burn very quickly, but I I see the benefits of training in the heat quite a lot. Of course, there's a limit to that. But yeah, I hate in winter in the UK where it's like that's kind of where I'm getting into my peaks part of my season. It's raining and it's cold, and I've got to go out and do these long runs. But I much prefer running in the heat. It's the only chance I get to tan as well.
I feel you. Yeah, pretty much UK
Yeah.
feels cold and gloomy, barely any sun out there. So I'm sure Cyprus was heaven for you all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, Sean, if you describe Hyrox in one word, what would it be?
First part.
I'll come again. If you describe the Hyrox in
Yeah.
one word, what would it be?
Fast.
Fast. Okay.
Yeah.
We've went through this, but currently your favorite station of the Hyrox competition,
Wall balls.
and perhaps reasoning for people who hate wall balls out there, literally.
Your race is done. Your race is done after it. Just
Yeah,
get it done, and then you can cross that finish line. You can have as much food as you like.
that is true. Speaking of food, your favorite pre-workout for the before Hyrox race.
Oh my! Overnight oats.
Okay, oats. And then yes or no, do you carry any gels as you race in a Hyrox? Yes or no?
I carry two.
2 gels. And when exactly do you have them? Which duration or which?
I have my first gel after the burpee broad jumps, so about the 35, 40 minute mark. And then I have a second gel, depending how good the race is going. I will have it during the lunges, so I should be at about 50, 55 minute mark.
That mark. Current PB and your goal PB for the next race.
My pro PB is a 107. My goal for this year is hit the 60 minute mark or sub 60.
Top 60. That's amazing.
Yeah.
If ever comes a beginner and walks in and asks you, Sean, if you'd actually advise me to do Hyrox, how would you give advice to them, or how would you actually break it down to them, and why would
Well,
you sell the Hyrox for them?
okay. Break it down. First of all, selling it to them, it's an incredible sport. Like, I'd probably say one of the most supportive sports you'll ever meet. The community is insane. Like, globally in general, it's such a supportive community on social media, and obviously at the events as well. Everyone is gunning for you. You'll even have random spectators cheer you on, and the judges will cheer you on. As for getting into the training and getting yourself going, expose yourself to the exercises. I get used to using the kettlebells for the farmers carry, try a sled out here and there, just if you're not used to those. And I'd say train 3 to 4 times a week and make sure you're running at least 3 times a week.
Alrighty, this is I think that's the $1 million question: chalk or no chalk?
Chalk or no chalk? No. Oh, on race day, chalk.
The chalk, yeah, we chalk.
Yeah.
All right, all stations or certain stations? Like, some people do not want some chalk on farmers carry, but they all like wall balls, but all the way.
Chalk on the sled pull, definitely, and on the farmers carry. Yeah, definitely. No chalk on wall balls. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
No need for it.
If you'd replace one station, which one and by what?
Oh, burpee broad jumps. That can kick the can. But yeah, I don't care how quick people can improve on it. And I've improved myself, and I've seen many people, but it's awful. It never feels nice. Even if you improve your training, it still feels like hell when you're in it. What would I have there instead? Ooh, it still has to be something moving. Put an extra erg in there. Put a C2 bike. Put a watt bike in there. Put a 1,000 meter bike.
More
Or
cardio.
2K. More cardio, yeah.
Oh,
Put a 2K bike in there.
That would be very intense, but that would be great replacement. Not a big fan of broad burpees. I don't know. It does not feel right. It makes me nauseous for first, but yeah, not for me. God, Sean, is there any destination or like Hyrox race destination you've seen and would like to try?
Or there's 3. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm gonna hit like different continents here. So, Dubai.
Yep.
I've heard it's a very fast race. And I've never been. I always wanted to go and visit. Then let's hit Asia, Singapore. They do it in their national. They did it in their national stadium. So I've never seen it done in a stadium that's used for obviously grand events. So that'd be cool. And then to hit the States, so New York. I think New York. Yeah, they did it out. They did an outdoor event in New York, and from what I've been told, it was absolute hell, and it was like 40 degrees Celsius that people competing in, and they ran out of water. So
God,
I'll do it in I'll do that in winter. But yeah, 3. Yeah,
that would be
Dubai, Singapore, New York.
And they're very different in terms of weather conditions,
Yeah.
destinations, continents. No, that would be the ultimate dream. If Hyrox wasn't named the Hyrox, what would you name it?
Oh, you put me on the spot there.
I've actually done some research. There isn't really a specific reason why they named it the Hyrox, so I was just wondering.
It used to be called when it originally started in Germany, they called it Rox something, and there was already a brand in Germany with the same name.
Oh,
So they were forced to change it for obviously copywriting reasons and branding reasons. So they came up with Hyrox. who knows? They'll keep that. I reckon it's just a bunch of people in a room just throwing letters on a whiteboard. Yeah, that'll work. I don't know. I call it. Oh, you see, it's not catchy if I put more words into it. Hmm.
Yeah, it's tough. I'll tell you that.
No, it's tough. I literally
Hyrox is
can't.
perfect. It's just
Yeah.
short. It's catchy. It gives
Oh,
you
I know.
coverage.
I'll call it Hydrox because
Hydro.
the amount of conversations I have with people and call it, oh, when you're racing your next Hydrox, or what's Hydrox? And I was like, why have you added a D into the word? Well, you've made it longer. You've made it longer to say.
Yeah, well, the hydration bit came in handy, you know.
Yeah. Mhm.
God, that's exciting. So Sean, I know it's very difficult for us to predict something, but where do you see the sport going? And do you see the future in Hyrox? Do you think people are more tempted to try complex rather
Mm.
than simple sports?
Uh, I I only see it getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm,
It's obviously expanding into new territories every year. There's new races popping up. I think it's the first time it's on the African continent for the first time ever in South Africa in September. Um, and just recently, obviously, Australia have had their sort of season, and just seeing the numbers and growth. I think like Sydney was like just under 1,500 athletes
oh
last year.
wow.
This year
Wow.
it was nearly 6,000,
Crazy.
which is crazy
Massive.
numbers. I only see it getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I think because of the way they brand it and market it, it's a fitness race for everyone. It's not the like technically the bar has been lowered. It's not a technical sport such as CrossFit, and it doesn't take as long to compete. Let's say if someone wants to do an Ironman or a triathlon, the
Mm,
training for those events, while all you have to do is cycle. All you have to do is cycle, swim, and run.
mhm.
The training periods that it takes to compete in those events, it's a lot longer. So yeah, they've lowered the bar technicality wise, so that more people can get involved. So I can only see it getting bigger, and they're always learning and developing and listening um, to the feedback. So yeah, I could, as we said, we talked earlier about the Olympics. I'd see no reason within the next, I don't know, 8 years maybe that it could become an Olympic sport.
I echo that, God, Sean. It's been wonderful, honestly, hearing your journey and experiences. Where can our listeners find you online and learn more about your coaching?
Um, Everything for my life is Instagram. I live on that app. So yeah, you can find me at maddenfitness.uk. Yeah, that's the best way to follow me in my journey. Obviously, see the people I'm coaching. Everything around the sport is through my Instagram.
Yeah, amazing. So everyone, if you'd like to follow Sean's journey or get some top-notch coaching, you could just follow those handles and we'll pin it down. Thank you so much for listening to the Hybrid Zone. Today was a great episode covering Hyrox. We're all mad about, and keep training hard, and we'll catch you all in the next episode. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, Yara.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye bye.